The morning of Thanksgiving arrived with the kind of crisp autumn chill that made you grateful for warm kitchens and family gatherings. I stood in my modest two-bedroom apartment, carefully arranging store-bought pumpkin pie on my best plates, the ones with the tiny chip on the rim that I always positioned toward the wall. At 63, I'd grown accustomed to these small deceptions, these quiet ways of maintaining dignity. My son Michael was bringing his wife Jennifer and their two children for dinner. It would be our third Thanksgiving together since his marriage, and I'd learned to brace myself for Jennifer's particular brand of commentary. She had a way of making observations that felt like paper cuts, small, sharp, and designed to sting just enough. The apartment was clean, almost obsessively so. I'd spent 2 days scrubbing floors that were already spotless, polishing furniture that held more sentimental value than monetary worth. The turkey, a modest 12-pounder that had stretched my monthly budget, sat golden in the oven. Everything had to be perfect, even though I knew perfection wouldn't be enough. The knock came at exactly 2 o'clock. Jennifer prided herself on punctuality, viewing it as evidence of superior character. "Hi, Dad," Michael said, embracing me with genuine warmth. My son had his mother's kind eyes, and for a moment I saw her in him, Sarah, who'd passed away 8 years ago, leaving me with memories and an ache that never quite faded. "Hello, Richard," Jennifer said, not bothering with a hug. She swept past me, her designer handbag probably worth more than my monthly rent. Her eyes immediately began their customary survey of my home, cataloging its inadequacies. The children, Emma and Noah, 7 and 5 respectively, rushed in with the unbridled energy of youth. They at least seemed happy to see me, and I hugged them both tightly. "Grandpa, your apartment smells like turkey," Emma announced with delight. "It's quite small, isn't it?" Jennifer observed, settling onto my worn couch with the expression of someone making a noble sacrifice. "Michael, I still don't understand why your father insists on living in such cramped quarters. My parents' home has 5 bedrooms." "It suits my needs," I said evenly, heading to the kitchen. Throughout dinner, Jennifer maintained a running commentary. The turkey was dry but edible. My apartment was depressing for the children to visit. My car, a 15-year-old sedan that ran perfectly well, was practically an antique and probably unsafe. But the real moment came when Noah, sweet innocent Noah, asked me about my job. "Grandpa, what do you do for work?" "I'm retired now, buddy," I said, ruffling his hair, "but I used to work in property management." Jennifer's laugh cut through the room like glass breaking. "Property management, is that what we're calling it? Michael told me you were basically a janitor, Richard. Let's not pretend it was some prestigious career." She turned to the children with exaggerated sympathy. "Your grandfather is a loser who wasted his life in a dead-end job. That's why he lives in this tiny apartment and drives that terrible car. It's a lesson in what happens when you don't apply yourself." The room went silent. Michael's face flushed red. "Jennifer, that's completely inappropriate." "What? I'm teaching them about consequences, about ambition. You don't want them ending up like—" She gestured vaguely at me and my apartment. "This, do you?" Something inside me that had been compressed for years suddenly expanded. I'd endured her condescension, her barely veiled contempt, her treatment of me as a cautionary tale. I'd stayed silent because Michael loved her, because I didn't want to cause problems, because I'd convinced myself that keeping the peace was more important than defending my dignity. But watching my grandchildren's confused faces, hearing myself described as a loser in my own home, on Thanksgiving no less, something shifted. "Jennifer," I said quietly, setting down my fork, "I think it's time we had an honest conversation." She smirked. "Oh, are you going to tell me I'm wrong, going to defend your illustrious career as a, what did you call it, property manager?" "Actually, yes." I stood up, walked to my bedroom, and returned with a folder I'd kept locked away for years. "You're right that I worked in property management, but you've made some incorrect assumptions about what that meant." I opened the folder and spread several documents across the table: property deeds, investment portfolios, bank statements. Michael leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "Dad, what is this?" "This," I said, pointing to the first deed, "is the apartment building we're currently sitting in. I own it, all 32 units." I moved to the next document. "This is the commercial property on Riverside Avenue. I own that too, and this is the shopping complex on Highland Drive, also mine." Jennifer's smirk had frozen on her face. You see, Jennifer, I didn't just manage properties, I acquired them. Your father-in-law is a real estate investor. I started with nothing 40 years ago, buying a rundown duplex with every penny Sarah and I had saved. We fixed it up ourselves. I learned plumbing, electrical work, carpentry. We rented it out, saved every dollar, and bought another property. Then another. I pulled out more documents, letting them spread across the table like cards in a winning hand. Over 4 decades, I built a real estate portfolio worth approximately $8 million. The properties generate over $60,000 monthly in rental income, most of which I reinvest or donate to various charities, organizations that help people experiencing homelessness find housing, that provide scholarships to first-generation college students. Michael's mouth had fallen open. Dad, I had no idea, you never said. Your mother and I made a choice when you were young. We didn't want you growing up entitled or spoiled. We wanted you to understand the value of work, of earning your own way. So we lived modestly. We drove practical cars. We took reasonable vacations. We made sure you had everything you needed for education and opportunities, but we didn't flaunt wealth. I turned back to Jennifer, whose face had gone pale. After Sarah died, I continued living the same way. It's comfortable, it's familiar. This apartment holds memories of your mother, I said to Michael. Her books are still on those shelves. She chose that couch. We were happy here. I looked around the modest space with genuine affection. Why would I need a mansion when this place holds everything that matters? I pulled out one more document, a thick envelope I'd been carrying with me for months, waiting for the right moment. As for the future, I've been planning my estate. I was going to give you this after dinner, Michael, but perhaps now is appropriate. I handed him the envelope. Inside, you'll find documents showing that I've set up substantial trust funds for Emma and Noah. They'll have full college tuition covered, plus housing and expenses. There's also a fund for their first homes when they're ready. Emma and Noah looked confused but excited at hearing their names. Dad, I don't know what to say, Michael whispered, his eyes shining with tears. You don't need to say anything. You're my son, they're my grandchildren. This is what family does. I paused, looking directly at Jennifer. But I want to be clear about something. The way I've chosen to live, the values I've maintained, these aren't marks of failure, they're choices, conscious choices based on what I believe matters in life. Jennifer had recovered enough to speak, her voice tight. Why didn't you tell us? Why let me think? Why let you think I was a loser? I finished gently. Because I wanted to see who you really were. I wanted to understand the person my son had married, the mother of my grandchildren, and you've shown me, Jennifer, repeatedly. Richard, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean. Yes, you did, you meant every word. You believe that a person's worth is measured by visible wealth, by status symbols, by the size of their home and the price of their car. You felt entitled to mock me, to use me as a cautionary tale for your children because you judged me as beneath you. I sat back down, suddenly tired. The adrenaline that had carried me through the revelations was fading, leaving behind a deep sadness. Michael, I love you. I love Emma and Noah. You're welcome here always, but Jennifer, I need you to understand something. Respect isn't negotiable. You don't get to treat people as less than regardless of their circumstances. The person you were mocking, the loser you described, would still deserve dignity even if everything you assumed was true. Jennifer stood abruptly. I think we should go. No, Michael said firmly, and I heard a strength in his voice I hadn't heard before. No, we're not leaving. Jennifer, you owe my father an apology, a real one. She stared at her husband and something passed between them, a conversation without words. Finally, she sank back into her chair. You're right, she said quietly. Richard, I'm truly sorry, not because of, she gestured at the documents, this, but because I was cruel, because I said terrible things in front of the children, because I made assumptions and judgments that were completely out of line. Her voice cracked. I was raised to value the wrong things, and I'm still unlearning that. It's not an excuse, but it's the truth. I studied her face, looking for sincerity. What I saw was a young woman confronting an uncomfortable reflection of herself, and perhaps that was worth something. Apology accepted, I said. But Jennifer, I want you to really think about the lessons you're teaching Emma and Noah. They're watching everything, learning what matters, learning how to treat people. She nodded, tears now streaming down her face. The rest of the evening was subdued but not uncomfortable. We ate pie. The children asked questions about the properties and I showed them pictures of the buildings, promising tour. Michael kept looking at me with a mixture of awe and confusion as if seeing his father for the first time. As they were leaving, Michael hugged me tightly. Dad, I have so many questions. Come by this weekend, just you and me, we'll talk. After they left, I cleaned up the dishes slowly, thinking about the day. The apartment felt peaceful in the twilight, full of shadows and memories. Through the window, I could see the city lights beginning to sparkle. I picked up a photo of Sarah from the bookshelf, her smile radiant, her eyes full of mischief. Well, I said to her image, that was quite a Thanksgiving. She would have handled it better, probably. She always knew the right thing to say, but she also would have understood why I'd finally spoken up. Why I'd defended not just myself but the life we'd built together, the values we'd shared. The next morning I received a text from Jennifer. Thank you for yesterday, I mean it. Can we start over? I replied simply, yes. Because that's what you do, you forgive, you give people room to grow, you model the behavior you want to see. 3 weeks later, Jennifer brought Emma and Noah to visit, just the three of them. She'd been volunteering at one of the homeless housing charities I supported. I want to understand, she said, really understand what matters. It was a beginning, not a perfect one, but real growth rarely is. In my modest apartment, it remained exactly as it was, full of memories, comfortable and home.